The anime begins with a young office worker named Midori Akitsu, who suddenly faints and passes away right after returning home from work. In an unexpected twist, she is given a chance to reincarnate in a parallel world. To help her navigate this new realm, a god offers her a special ability, and Midori requests a power that would allow her to connect closely with animals. Reborn as Nefertima, the third child of a noble family holding the title of Duke, she enjoys a loving, harmonious family life. Her siblings are kind, and her parents dote on her, often showering her with affection. Additionally, Nefertima has a loyal pet dog that is always by her side. Thanks to the god's blessing, animals naturally flock to her, making her daily life filled with joy. At the age of 3, Nefertima's mother takes her to the royal palace, sparking her excitement as it's her first outing beyond their home. However, upon arrival, she is asked to wait in a room. To pass the time, Nefertima decides to play in the garden, where she is soon surrounded by various animals. Before long, a large tiger approaches her. Despite the tiger's intimidating appearance, Nefertima feels no fear and gently pets it. Surprisingly, the tiger remains calm, and she even gets to ride around on its back. Shortly afterward, Prince Wilherd, the tiger's owner, approaches and asks her to dismount. Though the tiger, named Lars, seems gentle, the prince explains that Lars is a sacred and powerful creature, not meant to be ridden. Mistaking her for a lost child, the prince escorts Nefertima into the palace, taking her to the king's private room, where her father is working. When she reunites with her father, Nefertima quickly clarifies that she is not lost. Wanting to play with the tiger again, Nefertima impresses the king with her politeness, and he permits her to return. However, her mother advises Nefertima to avoid approaching the tiger in public, as Lars possesses elemental powers, marking him as a rare, mystical being. It turned out, her family has always known that animals are drawn to Nefertima, but they're amazed by her ability to befriend the celestial tiger. On another occasion, Nefertima and her parents visit the Royal Academy to observe the students' examinations. In a combat skills test, her older brother, Ralph, emerges victorious. At that moment, Nefertima feels immensely proud of Ralph, but there is a student named Tristan who belittles his abilities. Unwilling to tolerate the disrespect, Nefertima defends her brother, which angers Tristan to the point that he nearly strikes her. Fortunately, the prince was there to intervene, asserting that Nefertima was under his protection, which prevented Tristan from causing any trouble. Later, when her sister Canadia was taking a magic exam, she accidentally summoned a fire dragon with her powers. To keep the dragon from being attacked, Nefertima spontaneously leapt into the arena to shield it from the guards. Her bold action left everyone in awe. Not only did she calm the fire dragon, but she also communicated with it, gaining its trust. The dragon, named Sol, introduced himself and offered to make Nefertima his master when she grew older. For now, Sol gifted her a magical orb that allows her to connect with the dragon race. Nefertima was entrusted to protect the orb, as it not only enabled communication, but also had the potential to unleash dragon powers. After sharing this, Sol left the arena peacefully, without sparking conflict with humans, thanks to Nefertima. However, the event led to some serious concerns. As a result, Nefertima was soon summoned by the kingdom to ensure that she would not be a threat to the kingdom. Being young, she could do little and relied on her parents, who defended her passionately, taking an oath of loyalty. Her parents managed to convince the king, yet because her powers were highly valued, some were eager to use Nefertima for political purposes. To distract her from these adult concerns, the prince invited his pet to play with Nefertima, allowing her to relax and enjoy time with Lars until she fell soundly asleep. In the evening, her parents woke her with good news. Everything had gone well, and no one would trouble her again. Additionally, the king announced that Nefertima was now free to roam anywhere in the palace. Knowing her fondness for animals, the prince granted her permission to see the dragons near the palace, accompanied by Gwen, the leader of the royal guards. Eagerly, Nefertima went to visit the dragon stables. Upon arrival, they were greeted by Yates, the captain of the Dragon Knights. At that moment, Nefertima found Yates to be friendly, yet a small disagreement quickly led to an argument between him and Gwen. To prevent further conflict, Nefertima stepped in, urging them to take her to the dragon stable. Before entering, she was warned to simply observe and avoid reaching out, as the dragon might bite. However, seeing the dragons up close, Nefertima could not resist wanting to touch them. This desire activated the power of the dragon orb she held, drawing the dragons toward her. At that moment, the knights prepared to protect her, yet there was no need, as the dragons simply wanted to play with Nefertima. Thanks to the orb given by Sol, Nefertima could communicate with the dragons and was even allowed to ride them. This unexpected scene amazed everyone present, sparking curiosity about who Nefertima really was. Afterward, Nefertima was taken to meet the captain of the Beast Knights, named Leston. Apparently, Leston had heard rumors of Nefertima's remarkable ability to tame animals, but meeting her in person, he found her to appear like any ordinary child. Shortly, they arrived at a vast grassland. According to Yates, this area had been carefully designed to allow animals to live freely. While there, Leston invited them to tour the grounds on horseback. Yet, when Nefertima approached a horse, it seemed uninterested and kept its distance. Despite its aloofness, Nefertima was determined to engage with it. Observing the situation, she soon realized why the horse was reluctant. It turned out that this particular horse was the leader, responsible for guarding its herd. Understanding this, Leston suggested that they ride a more docile horse familiar with people. This way, they could comfortably explore and observe the various animals around. Later, as they traveled through the savannah, they encountered a group of waka, known as the fastest animals on land, often used for urgent deliveries. Nefertima was eager to ride one, but due to the danger, Leston decided to accompany her and secured her with a safety harness. Fearless, Nefertima requested a high-speed ride, which left her breathless but thrilled. Shortly after, Leston received a report from his subordinates about a rare animal that had escaped. As they split up to search, they found the creature calmly playing with Nefertima. Not long after, on her birthday, Nefertima's parents asked what gift she would like. Though she had no particular wish, she hoped to visit the city to celebrate. Concerned for her safety, her father refused. Not only that, her mother then suggested that she could go with Canadia and a guard. Once granted permission, they eagerly set out for the city. Upon arrival, Nefertima was fascinated by the bustling rows of street vendors. She took this chance to ask Canadia to teach her how to use money. After purchasing food from a stall, she kindly shared it with Canadia and their guard, enjoying a memorable day out. Shortly after, Nefertima caught the scent of a delicious snack. Without hesitation, she searched for it and felt tempted to buy some. Initially, she planned to order 3, but the vendor suggested buying 20 to receive a bonus. Since the price was still affordable, Nefertima decided to go for it. When Canadia asked why she bought so many, Nefertima explained it was for her mother, father, and everyone at home. Later, at a cafe, another young noble tried to provoke Canadia and openly insulted Nefertima, unaware of the truth. Not tolerating this, Canadia quickly defended her, proudly mentioning that the king himself acknowledged Nefertima's abilities. When Nefertima returned home, she was welcomed with a surprise from everyone. Despite his busy schedule, the king and his entourage came to celebrate her birthday. As time passed, Nefertima's responsibilities grew. Now, she needed to start lessons, which meant her time with the animals would be reduced. Because of this, a woman named Annalie was brought in by her parents as her tutor. Though she appeared elegant and poised from the first day, she scolded Nefertima and even reprimanded her for not following noble etiquette. Annalie explained that she had taught Nefertima's siblings before and expected her to be just as outstanding. However, Annalie's harsh teaching methods frustrated Nefertima. Yet, rather than complaining to her parents, Nefertima chose to be obedient, enduring her teacher's strictness. However, Nefertima couldn't keep up the act forever. Pretending to comply all day wore her down, even causing her to lose her appetite. Sensing her daughter's unusual behavior, Nefertima's mother sought to understand the cause. Realizing her sadness stemmed from Annalie, her mother advised Nefertima to approach the situation strategically. She suggested that Nefertima carefully study Annalie to gain her respect. Observing Annalie closely, Nefertima suspected that she wasn't as refined as she appeared. Upon investigating her background, she discovered that Annalie was connected to the Church of the Creator, similar to someone who had previously tried to manipulate her. During a lesson, Nefertima suddenly asked Annalie why the Church of the Creator didn't offer aid to a neighboring region during a drought while other nations provided food supplies. With confidence, Annalie responded that the region had been cursed by the deity and was undeserving of help, as its inhabitants were beast folk. Firmly, Nefertima replied that Annalie's views were cruel, and she would never want to be like someone who looked down on others without ever meeting them. Her words left Annalie speechless, unable to counter. Annalie then decided to end the lesson early. From that day on, Annalie no longer taught etiquette harshly and began covering topics that interested Nefertima. With a lighter schedule, Nefertima could once again enjoy her free time with the animals. Some time later, when Nefertima turned 5, her father invited her on a visit to the northern region. Knowing it was a cold place, Nefertima hoped to see many furry animals, which made her eager to join the trip. However, shortly after arriving, they were confronted with a serious problem: a monster attack in an area where such creatures weren't supposed to appear. As a result, Nefertima was asked to use her powers to help search for clues. The next day, Nefertima and her father, accompanied by guards and guided by locals familiar with the monster's last sighting, began investigating the forest. After a long walk, they decided to take a break for lunch. Just as they were about to rest, they were interrupted by a creature passing through the area. Being an animal lover, Nefertima couldn't resist and quickly chased it down. However, shortly after catching it, she was suddenly caught in a trap. It seemed goblins had set the trap to capture her and take her back to their lair. Once surrounded by goblins, Nefertima tried to fight back. Her resistance, however, only made the goblins look sad, and they no longer seemed threatening. Even so, they weren't willing to let her go without issuing a warning. The goblins then took Nefertima to their holding area, where she found 2 other children who had also been captured, a brother and sister named Pino and Nino. To find a way out, Nefertima asked Sol if he could help defeat the goblins with his fire magic. Sol explained he couldn't target the goblins directly, but suggested that the situation might change if Nefertima could use magic herself. However, lacking magical ability, Nefertima could only wait and hope for her father's rescue. Before long, the captive children began to feel hungry. Hoping to find food, Nefertima tried sneaking out of the holding area and luckily encountered a goblin carrying fruit. Seeing her search for food, the goblin kindly offered her some. In return, Nefertima demonstrated the correct way to peel the fruit, which the goblins quickly learned, bringing about a sense of friendliness between them. Before long, Nefertima was brought before the hobgoblin, who could speak. She then took this chance to ask why they had attacked humans. The hobgoblin explained that their attacks were purely for survival. It turned out humans had continually hunted and driven them from their lands, forcing them out of their homes in the forest. All they desired was to live as they once did, peacefully among the trees. Hearing their plight, Nefertima felt a strong urge to help. To prevent her father from launching an attack on their lair, she sought the help of Pino and Nino to act as a distraction. Agreeing to the plan, Pino and Nino pretended to be chased by the goblins, giving the other goblins time to hide. At the same time, Nefertima would guard the lair using the power of her dragon orb. Though dangerous, the plan was successful. However, her father scolded Nefertima out of deep concern for her safety. Nefertima then explained to everyone that this situation had been caused by human actions. As they were gathered together, a monstrous spider suddenly approached. Before it could threaten them, Hobgoblin quickly stepped forward, engaging it in a fierce battle. Even as a talking hobgoblin, he was still seen as nothing more than prey by the ice spider, making it a true fight for survival. After unleashing his strongest attack, Hobgoblin was crushed under the spider's body. Yet, it seemed he had successfully defeated the monster, sparing the others from having to fight. In its dying moments, the spider asked Nefertima to look after its young, which saddened her as she couldn't save the creature. This experience inspired Nefertima to grow stronger so that all creatures could live peacefully. As calm returned, Hobgoblin, who had defeated the monster, suddenly began to evolve, transforming to resemble a human with horns. Unsure of what he had become, Nefertima quickly asked Sol to help identify his new form. The following day, the goblins released the remaining captives. At the same time, Nefertima was advised to release her animal companions back into the forest to preserve its ecosystem. Understanding the importance of this, she agreed. However, she couldn't release the young spider, as she had accidentally given it a name. Apparently, by naming the creature, Nefertima had automatically formed a contract with it. According to Hobgoblin, monsters are typically flawed beings, but once named by a more perfect creature, they transform into something stronger. Because of this, her father warned her not to give names carelessly. However, Hobgoblin also revealed that he still didn't have a name, which surprised Nefertima given his strength even without one. Once all the captives had been freed, they began their journey back to the village. Upon arriving, Nefertima bid a heartfelt farewell to Pino and Nino. During this time, Nino invited Nefertima to visit their home, and Nefertima immediately promised that she would definitely come. Soon after, Nefertima met with Sol, the fire dragon. When she encountered him, she found herself captivated by the sensation of stroking his scales. However, Sol's visit wasn't merely for play. He had come to confirm whether the newly evolved Hobgoblin had become an Oni. After assessing his appearance and elemental control, Sol concluded that Hobgoblin wasn't an Oni, as the species remained unidentified. Despite this, Nefertima then decided to give this creature a suitable name, unintentionally forming a contract with him in the process, where she named him Shinki. Alongside Shinki, Nefertima shared with her father a grand plan to unite monsters and humans. Part of this plan included setting up a barrier in a remote area to create a training ground for the Adventurers Guild, which would help manage monster population levels. Her father supported the idea, though they needed to move on to their next inspection, as the issues in this region were urgent. Shinki agreed to help them, but requested that Nefertima name other goblins before they left, so they could defend the lair in his absence. To protect the entire clan, Nefertima named the second strongest goblin after Shinki. However, as some of the weaker goblins also wanted names, Nefertima set a condition that they must hunt a giant boar before receiving one. With this settled, they continued on to their next inspection. On the journey to the Farzit region, Nefertima's father asked Shinki about the usual escape routes used by monsters. By gathering this information, they could predict areas where monsters might appear. Nefertima's father also planned to investigate whether humans might be behind this disturbance. Upon reaching the town, Nefertima's father immediately met with key officials. At the same time, Nefertima slipped away to visit the Adventurers Guild without informing her father. Inside the guild, Nefertima overheard a conversation in which an official complained about embezzlement by the mayor. The man was protesting to the guild, blaming them for allowing the mayor to pocket funds meant for handling monster problems. Without hesitation, Nefertima approached the official and introduced herself as the second daughter of the Duke. She requested that he share more details about this issue. Recognizing her status, the finance official, named Heelran, promptly divulged everything. Heelran then explained that the mayor had exaggerated the severity of monster attacks, even falsifying death reports just to pocket compensation funds. Additionally, the mayor had implemented policies like raising infrastructure costs, which were highly damaging. Hearing this, Nefertima couldn't trust his word immediately, but if solid evidence could be provided, she could bring the matter directly to her father. Therefore, she asked Heelran to accompany her, while requesting Shinki to negotiate with the goblins to keep them from causing disruptions near the city. Nefertima then sent a message to her father, asking him to wait in front of the mayor's building. Later that evening, Nefertima met her father there. Although he was angry about her sudden disappearance, after she explained everything, they successfully detained the mayor and replaced him with someone trustworthy. Thanks to the combined efforts of everyone involved, the case was resolved. Recognizing Heelran's outstanding efforts, the Duke offered him a position at the palace. However, Heelran declined, expressing his preference to work alongside Nefertima to help realize her plans. Upon learning of Nefertima's ambitious plan to gather monsters, Prince Wilherd expressed his desire to join her. Ralph also committed to overseeing the project to ensure everything ran smoothly. Shortly after, Shinki reported that he had managed to subdue the goblin responsible for causing trouble. The goblins had been ordered to hide in a cave, avoiding any further disturbance. The group then discussed kobold attacks in the Linus region. Although knights had been dispatched to address the situation, they were struggling, as someone had cut off information, preventing support from the Adventurers Guild. To identify the mastermind behind this issue, Nefertima decided to travel to Linus, joining Ralph's team on their inspection mission. That night, Nefertima was encouraged to rest, and she was finally able to relax, stroking her beloved companion Lars. The next morning, they began their journey to Linus while Nefertima's father returned home to report to the palace. His return without Nefertima worried Canadia, prompting her to set out to find Nefertima. When Nefertima and her group arrived in Linus, the guards initially denied them entry, as the area had become the front line in the battle against the kobolds. To reassure the guards, Ralph and Wilherd stepped down from the carriage, explaining that they were acting under the Duke's orders to investigate the monster sightings. Understanding their purpose, the commander allowed them entry along with their troops and agreed to escort them to the governor's headquarters. Due to frequent kobold attacks, the situation in the region was deteriorating. The local governor explained that since the knights were no longer able to fend off the attacks, they had contacted adventurers to form an extermination squad. Hearing that the kobolds were to be eliminated, Nefertima became deeply alarmed. As someone striving to foster positive relations with monsters, she urgently needed to secure the kobolds before they were wiped out. To support his sister, Ralph took her on a tour of the town before the squad could be formed. Since knights were still on guard, the town remained under control, though the repeated kobold attacks had caused extensive damage, leaving many residents in hunger. While exploring, Nefertima spotted a creature being bullied by some children and quickly rescued it, unaware it was a kobold. Once informed of its identity, she decided to return the kobold to its mother. As they continued through the town, they noticed certain oddities. Sensing something amiss, Hilran requested permission to investigate, suspecting that the governor might be hiding something from them. Later, as Nefertima and her group ventured into the forest, the kobold pup began acting strangely. When the knights examined the area, they discovered a slime-type monster waiting ahead. At that moment, Nefertima was eager to capture it, but realized that the slime seemed to be in distress and in need of help. Seeing her intent, Ralph smiled and assured her he would protect her if things became dangerous. Eventually, they encountered a mother slime about to give birth. To prevent a population explosion that might harm the forest, Nefertima decided to tame the slime and allow it to live within her. Though risky, this approach could bring benefits if the slime bonded with her. With the slime issue resolved, they continued searching for the kobold pack. Yet, despite covering a large distance, they found nothing. Investigating further, Nefertima speculated that a guardian might be protecting this forest. Following the spirit's movement, they eventually came across a sacred place where only the chosen may enter. Within it stood a guardian tree that protected the forest with its powers. Legend had it that this tree was the evolved form of a rare creature that had lived for centuries. Standing before the guardian tree, Nefertima introduced herself politely, apologizing for the disturbance. She explained her purpose to return the kobold child to its family. Nefertima then respectfully requested the guardian to guide her to the kobold pack. Unfortunately, the guardian tree couldn't reveal their location, as humans had relentlessly hunted the kobolds, forcing the guardian to hide them for their safety. Despite this, Nefertima was determined to reunite the kobold child with its mother. She explained her desire to negotiate with the kobolds and help relocate them to a safe place. She also warned the guardian that the Linus ruler was planning to bring in an extermination squad, endangering the area's creatures and plants. Hearing her explanation, the forest guardian finally agreed to show her the way, with a stern warning that if she were deceiving him, she wouldn't be allowed to leave alive. Once they were granted access, Nefertima and her companions entered the kobold hideout. Initially, the kobolds resisted their arrival, but when Nefertima returned the lost kobold child, they accepted her presence. While the others ate, Nefertima had a conversation with Cicely, the leader of the kobold pack. She informed Cicely about the imminent extermination squad, emphasizing the danger of staying in this location. Cicely, a seer who could foresee events by reading the stars, already knew of this threat. Because of this, Nefertima offered to help move the kobolds to safety, but Sicily rejected the idea, distrusting humans for oppressing her kind. However, as Nefertima left, Sicily noticed a guiding star nearby, leading her to believe that perhaps Nefertima was the foretold savior. Although initially turned down, Nefertima was not ready to give up. The next day, she returned, this time bringing plenty of food and accompanied by the monster she had previously saved. This gesture further convinced Sicily that Nefertima could indeed help them escape their plight. Changing her mind, Sicily agreed to listen. After Nefertima explained her entire plan, Sicily summoned other kobold leaders to discuss the details. The rescue mission was named Project Sienna, with the ultimate goal of gathering monsters to coexist peacefully with humans. Hearing this, the kobold leaders supported the plan, but since time was short, they needed to quickly devise a way to confront the extermination squad. During the discussion, Sicily's younger sister, Spica, suddenly opposed the plan. Spica reminded everyone not to be deceived by humans, who had caused them so much suffering. Humans had often oppressed them, and nearly every kobold in the area had lost family members in extermination raids. Despite this, Nefertima earnestly expressed her desire to help the kobold pack and encouraged Spica to share any ideas she might have. Though still young, Spica wanted to support her pack's survival. Understanding her concerns, Nefertima suggested that Spica stay by her side, as it was the safest place. Sicily agreed, trusting that Nefertima was indeed their savior, and ordering Spica to remain close to her. With preparations underway, the kobolds began readying themselves to face the extermination squad, while Nefertima and her team headed to the knight's base to gather information. In a meeting with the commander, they received news of wounded knights. Judging by the depth of the injuries, Wilherd deduced they had been attacked by carnivorous beasts. At the same time, Ralph, a healing mage, immediately stepped in, tending to the injured knights with his magic. That evening, Hilran shared findings from his investigation. He had observed suspicious activities involving the regional commander, but hadn't yet found concrete evidence. However, noting the frequent, excessive emergency supply orders, he could trace the funds and review transaction records. To do this, he needed special authorization, and Prince Wilherd agreed to assist by lending him the royal insignia. The next day, Nefertima and her companions returned to the kobold hideout. Before facing the extermination squad, Wilherd provided the kobolds with intelligence on the squad's tactics, helping them strategize effectively. As a prince, Wilherd couldn't risk sacrificing knights or citizens for monsters, causing Nefertima to doubt if her plan could save the kobolds. Despite her uncertainty, she resolved to see it through, as this was the path she had chosen. When the enemy forces entered the forest, Shinki immediately created a thick fog along their path to obscure their vision. The kobolds seized the opportunity to disable as many knights as possible. Even the knights' tamed beasts were incapacitated, thanks to Nefertima's spider companion, who injected venom to neutralize them. Alongside direct confrontations, traps had been set to hinder the squad's progress, complicating their approach to the kobold hideout. When the knights triggered these traps, an adventurer's party with magic abilities stepped in to assist. To counter the mages, Nefertima requested aid from the fire dragon, but Sol refused, fearing injuries among the allies. In this situation, they had no choice but to deploy the kobold warriors. Though trained, most kobolds were still outnumbered by the squad. However, the kobolds managed to gain the upper hand, leveraging the forest terrain and their own determination. After the extermination squad realized that humans were assisting the kobolds, an adventurer advised them to retreat to prevent further casualties. Initially, the commander was reluctant to withdraw, as they had only completed part of the mission. However, Ralph managed to persuade him with sound reasoning, and he agreed to pull back the troops. The goal of this battle was to help the kobolds escape while minimizing attacks from the squad. Unfortunately, the kobold casualties were higher than expected. The kobold warriors mourned the loss of their leader, unable to stop blaming themselves. In this moment, Nefertima stepped in to encourage them, trying to lift their spirits so no one would harbor regrets. She took responsibility, as if it were all her fault, yet reassured them that those who sacrificed their lives had done so for a worthy cause. Because of this, Nefertima expressed her resolve to become as strong as they were, ready to risk her own life for the safety of others. Nefertima's words deeply moved the kobolds. They stopped grieving and began planning for the future, even committing to help Nefertima work toward peace between humans and monsters. Enduring this difficult time strengthened Nefertima's resolve to pursue leadership. At the same time, she promised to protect the kobolds at all costs. After further discussion, they decided to relocate the kobolds to a mountain near the border. Before parting, Spica expressed her wish to join Nefertima someday, though she would need to complete her training first and promised to keep in touch when she was older. After bidding farewell to the kobold pack, Nefertima and her team attended a victory banquet for the extermination squad. Although they had to retreat at the end, the squad considered it a success, as they had suffered minimal losses. While Ralph attended to the wounded, Nefertima and Prince Wilherd greeted the adventurers' party. In gratitude for their contributions to the mission, Wilherd thanked them personally. Among the adventurers was a beast folk man. When he came over to greet Lars, the sacred beast, Nefertima couldn't resist the temptation to pet his animal-like ears. Coincidentally, he invited her to dinner, and as he lifted her up, she asked for permission to pet him. Even though it was brief, the softness she felt left her delighted. Noticing some children her age working hard, Nefertima approached them with words of encouragement. Her actions surprised many, as they saw her as different from typical noble children. Shortly afterward, Nefertima reunited with Canadia. Having been apart for so long, Canadia hugged her tightly. Over dinner, Nefertima was asked to share her recent experiences. Later that night, as Nefertima slept, Sol suddenly whisked her away, flying her into the sky to show her a glimpse of the world's beauty. Moral lesson from the story: be careful who you name. They might just become your new pet, or even your bodyguard. And if you want peace between monsters and humans, bring snacks. Everyone loves snacks,